What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My topic today is actually inspired by a topic I did 2 weeks ago. In that topic I talked about things that surprised or shocked me about Japan when I first arrived that I now take for granted or just don't pay attention to anymore. Basically don't even notice. And that got me inspired and thinking about doing a topic which is things that are normal in Japanese society, behaviors and manners that would actually get you into trouble in any other foreign country. Basically, things that Japanese people do that would be seen as bad manners abroad, or maybe even get you into legal trouble. So, that's the topic for today. Hope you enjoy it, and let's roll the intro. Okay, before we get into today's topic, it is kind of a culture and a manner on YouTube to ask people to like and subscribe. Now, I'm not going to abide by that in the same way. I don't think you should like and subscribe. Just because you're watching, I don't believe that I should be telling you to do that. But I genuinely hope that if you like the video, you will hit that like button, because that is a great way for this channel to grow. So if you like it, actually hit the like button. Okay, now for the topic at hand. I'm going to start with some basic ones that you might be aware of even if you've never been to Japan. The first is, Japan being a very safe country, people will leave their bag on a cafe table to reserve it while they go to order. And you'll even see people come into a cafe, set a bag down, and leave. Actually leave the cafe. Which, to an American, well, first of all, your bag is likely to be stolen. And second of all, in certain countries where there might be terrorist threats, the idea of leaving a bag on a table and then leaving the establishment, that's going to cause a big problem. So the second one is Japanese people slurping their noodles. If you go into a noodle shop in Japan, it is an auditory experience, believe it. And obviously in Europe and in North America, generally slurping your noodles is seen as bad manners. Making a sound is not a good thing. And it's actually, believe it or not, according to a chef friend of mine, why ramen is so expensive in America. It's because people, one of the reasons why you slurp noodles is so you can eat it quickly and you don't have to spend time like cooling it off with your breath and everything else, and you eat fast. And so customer turnover is really fast, which is why a tiny little ramen place in Tokyo that only has 5 seats at a counter can actually stay in business because they're turning customers over so quickly. But customer turnover is really slow in the US, and so as a result, less customers mean each individual customer is going to have to pay more. Seems like a pretty good theory. Could be true. Alright, so those first two you might have known without ever having been to Japan, but the next one I'm going to get into is actually, you probably have had to have experienced it to know about it. And that is, once a foreigner, always a foreigner, no matter where you are. What I mean by that is, Japanese tend to lump foreigners or gaikokujin into the category as simply meaning not Japanese. And so it doesn't really mean foreigner. I mean, the characters, it's like gaikokujin, outside country person. Easiest to translate that to foreigner, but they call us gaikokujin while they're in America. So basically, it's not a concept of them being in America and like, oh, now we're the gaikokujin because we are not American. No. They are always Japanese and we are always gaikokujin. And I've heard Japanese people in America using that term, and I've questioned them on it. I've kind of had a little mind explode moment when I said, you realize you're the gaikokujin in this situation, right? And they're like, tashikani, yeah, I guess so. And I've also heard this done in English too, where Japanese person in the States phrased their question in English as, well, what do foreigners really think about blah, blah, blah? And they just meant Americans. All right, the next couple actually have to do with alcohol and drinking. It is definitely a different drinking culture in Japan, and at least comparing it to the US, there are certain behaviors here that seem perfectly normal that would get you in trouble in the States. First, legally, open container is fine. You can walk around on the street in Japan with a beer in your hand. You can ride in a car with an open bottle or can of alcohol. There's no open container law for in the vehicle. As long as the driver has no alcohol at all, you're totally fine. So Japanese people trying to pull that off in the States could get into legal trouble, I suppose, if they don't realize that the rule is different. I'll never forget going on a trip with a group of fellow teachers, and we were just in a van, and everyone started cracking open beers once we got underway, and I'm like, wait, what? This is okay? The final one about drinking is interesting from a social standpoint, which is it's totally okay to get completely faced with your coworkers at end of the year parties or at welcome parties and that kind of thing. Like, get roaring drunk, act pretty inappropriately, and the next day it's like it never happened. You go back to work, maybe a little hungover, but no one talks about the antics from the night before. Like, getting drunk with your boss is not a strange thing. I feel like it might be pretty tough to get away with that. I mean, I'm sure there's maybe some work situations or environments in the States where getting drunk with everyone you work with is normal, but it's not the norm, let's put it that way. In Japan, it's the norm. It's totally fine to get blind drunk with the people you work with and the people who are above you. All right, now that we've strayed into the legal trouble area, there's a couple of serious ones I'm going to bring up, and I left these two particular ones for last because they are probably the most grievous mistakes you can make as a Japanese person going abroad. And the first is not using child seats properly. Now, I would actually say I think America has gotten a little bit too strict with all of its child seat policies and laws, but Japan is the other way in that it's not nearly strict enough. So often you will see children standing up in the front seat of their car, in the passenger side. You know, parent is driving and they're just standing, bouncing up and down in the front seat. Or they'll be in the back seat area, but they're standing up and you can see them, you know, in between the two passenger seats. They're talking to their parents or they're looking out the front window or whatever. Obviously not buckled in, obviously not in a car seat. And this bothers me as a driver because if I end up in a simple fender bender with a car like that, what should be just like annoying and, you know, get the insurance companies involved, whatever, fix the car up a little bit, suddenly becomes a possible fatality. And that's just not cool. Like, buckle your kids in. The other one that goes along with that is people using proper baby seats for their babies, but it's in the front passenger seat. I get it, convenient. If the baby's fussy, you can just like reach over and take care of it. But I really hope they've taken the time to disable the airbags on that side, because again, fender bender becomes fatality in that case. There actually is a case of this where a Japanese family was in Hawaii and they rented a car. Baby was in a baby seat but got fussy, and so the mother took the baby out. They got into a fender bender and she was holding the baby in the passenger seat. The airbag went off and killed the infant, and I don't know the details of if any charges were brought against them or what happened in that case, but it's a tragedy. So I wish Japan would be more strict about buckling their kids in and like enforcing those rules. It also should be mentioned that you can buy used baby seats in the secondhand stores here. Like, you can go into any secondhand store like a Hard Off or a Wataman or whatever they are in your location in Japan, and I mean, there'll be car seats that are probably 5-10 years old sitting there. You can pick up secondhand if you want, and I know that would not be legal in the States for sure. Now, the very last one may actually surprise a lot of people because of the image of Japanese people being generally peaceful, polite, pretty docile, not the type to cause a fuss. But if you've ever watched the news here, or you've watched variety shows that show like real police tapes and things like that, Japanese people can be really, really belligerent towards police officers. And obviously the police officer training here is very different because they put up with a lot of abuse from like drunken, disorderly types, even criminals who, they've been caught with drugs, or they've been caught stealing or something like that, or possessing a weapon they're not supposed to have. And, just the screaming and yelling, and even like kind of bodily bumping and shoving and getting into the face of the police officer. Things that would get you, smashed onto the ground, baton beating, maybe even be shot in America. Like, the belligerence you'll see towards police is, or can be, really shocking to see. And I've actually witnessed it firsthand in that there was a situation where this kind of fancy saloon type sedan was driving down the street, and a police officer on a scooter was trying to pull them over, like had driven in front of them, was trying to edge them to the side of the road. And the driver of the sedan was just really recklessly just almost bumping the police officer, trying to swerve in and around him, and like had the window down and was like blah 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 talking to this guy. And he calmed down when two police cruisers showed up and like boxed him in, and then he was all contrite then. But initially he was very belligerent. I mean, I can't imagine like disrespecting a police officer in that way, because in the States, like I said, it's going to turn violent and it's not going to end well for you. There's also a tendency, and this would be like advice I'd give to Japanese who are maybe renting a car in the States, there seems to be a tendency in Japan to get out of the vehicle when a police officer stops you. So like you're pulled over for speeding or whatever, the driver will sometimes just immediately jump out of the car. And in America, that could be seen as aggressive, and maybe this person is dangerous, and that would again put the police on edge, and it could become a potentially dangerous or violent situation. So yeah, that tendency to jump out of the car at a traffic stop is definitely a little bit odd. Okay, I'm gonna cross the road right here, since this is where the sidewalk appears to end. Jump a fence, and with the athletics out of the way. Thank you very much for watching this particular topic. Those are my examples. If you live here and you have other things that you can think of that are along the same lines, please share them in the comments below. I really like it when people chime in, and I want to thank all of you who pretty regularly make comments on my channel. It makes me really happy to see those, and I always look forward to reading what you have to say. So, thank you for watching this particular video, and I hope to see you next Friday. Again, thank you so much. Catch you next time.